Hi everyone, welcome back to AI News. My name is Ethan.
This is Felicia.
And today we have our future State Assembly member, Allan Marson again. Mr. Marson, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the district that you're running?
Sure. So I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for almost 40 years, actually. I lived both in Taipei for seven years and also in Beijing for 5.5 years. I'm married 35 years and have 2 grown sons. The district I'm running for is Assembly District 23. That includes the towns of Menlo Park, Palo Alto, Mountain View, Los Altos Hills, Saratoga. Actually, in San Jose, it includes Cupertino and West San Jose, as well as the coast from Pacifica South almost to Santa Cruz. The district currently there's a Democrat who's the current incumbent, and I'm running against him along with a couple of other candidates. So it's AD 23 is the name of the district.
Wow. Running in that area, it's a tough battle. Yeah. What make you want to run? Oh, by the way, if you guys want to see Mr. Marson's spiritual life and how he grew up and how he become the man he is today, please check out the episode on this corner or that corner. And then this one, we will really focus on the policy and why we must fight this battle against our own state.
Yes.
So please, can you tell us a little bit about what is wrong in your district, the things that you see?
So the things that I see, I should say at the beginning, we live in a very affluent, wealthy district. But the things that I see in the Bay Area, and increasingly in our district, are the crime. There are robberies. I mean, there's a lot of publicity about groups of people breaking into stores. There are stores closing down because they can't operate that way. Even in our local drugstore, you go in and many of the more expensive items are now locked up behind clear cases. You have to get someone to open them. So I mentioned, I think in the last time, that I actually do volunteer work for the last 12 years. I've worked one-on-one at City Team, which is a long-term men's recovery center. It's a 12-step program. Most of the men I work with come out of prison or off the street. They're the kind of men, many of them, not all of them, who do these crimes, right? So I get to talk to them about what their life is like, why they do it. A lot of I think the approaches that are taken now to tackle these problems, for example, many of these men are homeless, right? Not all of them, but many are. And the idea of putting homeless in housing, while it sounds good, it just doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is because these men, and I think it's probably true of most of the homeless people and many of the people committing crimes, they're part of a culture. They're not antisocial. They're very social people. They have friends who do the same thing, friends who also do drugs or do alcohol, friends who also are involved in crime. Sometimes they're in gangs. To put them in housing is simply to move that culture from the street into the housing. You still have the same culture. You still have the same addictions. You have the same crime. So that's not the way to solve it. The way to solve it, there are programs. I can't think of the name right now, but there are programs that are similar to the one used at City Team. And that is, get these men to move in. You have to get their cooperation, right? I mean, if people won't cooperate, eventually they're going to commit crimes and end up in prison, I think. But if you get their cooperation, you move them into a supervised environment where their connections with their friends, their drug dealing friends, their crime friends are broken off. And you have to give them something. Now, City Team is Christian. They don't take government money. And so we give them Jesus. We give them, a belief. We give them the Bible. I don't know how it's going to work in a secular system. But I'll just tell you, it does work in City Team. And these men go through the program. They look at themselves. They do the analysis required by the 12-step. And then they get help finding jobs. And they do find jobs. And they get out and establish a life and often reconnect with their children or establish families of their own. And they have jobs. They have a life. They're back in society. I think the problem is that many of the laws, like the one that decriminalized thefts under $950, actually made them misdemeanors that are never prosecuted, from what I can see. Those are not helpful. Those are damaging us. It's time to get, we have to have people in the legislature who will stand up and say, no, this is not right. No, it's not right that we have DAs who refuse to prosecute crimes. These men I talk to, not only for them, but to protect other people, what we need is clear, consistent laws, but they have to be severe enough that when a man or anyone looks at committing a crime, they're going to weigh the consequences and say, it's just not worth it. Right now, it is worth it. Yes. The penalties are not serious enough. They're just a cost of their lifestyle or of doing business. So that's one issue, is crime.
I think what you're saying is very important. And the way you see things, I mean, from your experience, last time you talked about your experience after you look at socialism and communism, and this one is where everyone in California cares about is crime. We have a huge crime problem, and the way you see it is not just, we should lock them up, they should need to pay for it, they need to do that, but you actually have a solution, and that is not what Gavin Newsom and them is pushing. And I think that is very important. We really have to look at our society in a Christian way on how we can help them, and we have to make them bear the consequences, and that is severe enough for them to say, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not only say it, he's really doing it. And he see the good results is coming out. So he know this way it worked. So that's the most important thing to do, because you're already in this industry, you're already helping people out, and you already see they receive Jesus and they
change their life,
and before and after, right? They can go back to the society, they can go have a work, they can have a family, they can establish their life. That's good.
And with his experience, I think that's so important. It's like when we saw Gavin Newsom's reports, like how to solve the homeless problem, we give them house. How to serve the hungry people, we give them food. It's like, what are you talking about? But he is really actually giving out.
Yeah, I mean, that's really touched me, because, that's a real Christian need to do thing. Like many church, so many people, they think those things are so simple, like Gavin Newsom, right? We just grab people's money and we put money in this and everything will solve. But you see like more and more people living in the streets, things get worse.
Because they want the money.
Yes, and now you see many church, they say, homeless are so pity, we have to like feed them food. So they just give them burgers, they give them like bento box or something. And after that, people still living in the street. So you are just doing the thing. You think, I'm a Christian, I need to do a good thing. And by those actions, but it doesn't work.
You just do things that make yourself feel good. Not to help them.
And to add to that, because at City Team, one of the things they do, the men do there, they get day-old food from places like Trader Joe's and Safeway, and they cook it and they feed homeless people there, right? So it's a good thing to feed homeless people, but what they also offer is when anyone there is ready, when they really need help, they have an emergency center where they can go and stay overnight or get food. But they're always there ready with a program that these people can enter when they're willing. I mean, you can't force someone, right? But when they're willing, they can enter it and it'll change them. I think too often money is thrown at the problem. These crazy expensive new houses are built, new living units. And it doesn't solve the problem because there is no long-term solution. Giving people drugs is not a long-term solution. And that's that's one of the things that happens. The long-term solution is to get people off drugs and to give them hope, to give them a change, to give them a way to get out of the life they're in, and show some of them even don't realize. I mean, you have to show them there's a different life possible, and then give them the tools and the way to get out of their old life into a new life.
Well, the other one that I think the California's problem is expensive housing. around your area? It must
that's so expensive.
Yeah.
That's
do you have any plans for that? Because I'm not a financial guy. I'm not
So I have to say, I'm not an expert in the area too, but there are people who can help, and I certainly will work with them. But I think the solution is fairly obvious. So let me start out by saying I lived many years in Taipei and Beijing before they had mass transit, but after people had gotten cars. Those are nightmare cities to live in when it comes to traffic. And right now, right now, the Bay Area Regional Council, I think, and the state are pursuing a policy, I believe, along El Camino, which is where I live. I live in Palo Alto near El Camino. They want to build small, large high-rises all up and down El Camino. You know, the goal is good, to provide more housing. But I think there's some people behind it who just want to force everybody not to drive cars. Because think about it. If everybody in those units has a car, the driving is going to become impossible. It already is difficult. You know, there's also an issue with large high rises going into residential areas. And maybe 10 years ago, I worked on one going into our area. And it's part of that. I went around, I looked at retirement homes. And the idea in retirement homes is people are retired, they don't need cars. So you just have at most one space per unit. But that's not how people live. I mean, the reality is people like cars. Cars give people freedom. They give them independence. You know, my father, the last thing he would give up was his car. He actually almost killed people because his eyesight was so bad. He wouldn't quit driving until, you know, he hit a survey. Not that the crew was at lunch, fortunately, but he hit a survey site where there was the survey instrument and the cones and everything. And only then would he finally give up. I mean, people love cars. I'm getting older, you know, I don't want to give up my car. But someone in the regional council or in Sacramento is just not willing to accept that. They're not willing to accept people are what they are. So my solution is this. Look, we do need more housing, and we can build some housing, but it has to be reasonable. It has to be suitable to the infrastructure. For many years, starting from when I was in high school, I joined the Sierra Club. I joined many environmental organizations that are very concerned about the environment. Starting in the 2000s, I left them all because their solutions are anti-human. Everybody wants, yeah, it's true. Everybody wants to save the environment. There's no, you know, I mean, this is nonsense, this sort of stereotyping that there's some conservatives out there who don't like the environment. That's crazy. Everybody wants to do it. But there's no reason at all, other than environmental objections, that we couldn't expand. We couldn't build new communities. That, you know, the way to reduce housing prices is to have more housing, but let's not build endless high rises. Let's give people, you know, a chance to live in a new community. It may be that older people or people in the university want to stay here. That's fine. But why not have a new community? You can put light industry out there. You can put, there's endless land. If you fly in an airplane and look around and you compare it to places like China or Japan, which have much more dense population, we have lots of room to build new areas. And not only that, I saw in China, you know, they've gone off the track in some ways by building, whether, you know, these ghost cities and things like that, these planned communities for people to live. But they were actually very successful in the beginning. And the way they were successful is they set up, they call them SEZs, economic development zones anyway. And they allowed industry and some people to live there. And those places developed into population centers. You didn't have to leave everyone in Shanghai or in Guangzhou. You know, the large population that they have, many of them could move into these new areas. And they were planned in such a way, the government didn't develop them, right? What it did is it sold some of the land and used that to help hire companies to come in and put in infrastructure. So I don't know the techniques, but there are people who do know, and it is possible to build that kind of housing. I think that's a very workable solution and something that would avoid the problems I see coming up. Because, you know, I've lived in many large cities, and I tell you, if we keep building like we are along El Camino, it'll spread to other places, and we'll actually just end up building future slums.
I think you're right, and we don't even have to look at China to do it. Think about American expansion to the West, Wild Wild West. It's just families grabbing their stuff, and go west and just build city. All the cities that you see, San Francisco, Los Angeles, all the cities you see, I live in Arcadia. We have a very beautiful park that used to be someone's houses. The guy named Baldwin. Everyone knows him. And Huntington. Everyone knows him. When people have the freedom to move out of the city, they will, and they will establish a beautiful life if the land belongs to God, not government. And I think whatever California is doing, first, they want to take away our way to protect ourselves. So they take away our guns. And then they take away our cars and they give us a tiny little house and in the middle of the city that you cannot go anywhere. All you can eat is your 7-Eleven convenience store downstairs. And then they go like, you know what? All these meat cost money and deliverance. How about just eat bugs? How about just eat cockroaches? I think that it's not a conspiracy. It happens. It's happening in Europe right now. And I think that we need a solutions to that.
Yeah.
This is something very, very serious. And everyone just think like, oh, we just need to fix the environment if you all just listen to me and do what I say. Yeah.
Along that same line, another thing that's happening in California is traditionally American government has been highly decentralized. It's controlled at the local level where people control it, right? The people are affected. So you can look at school boards. School boards have traditionally been controlled by the parents in the community. They elect the school board members. If you look at zoning, we do need some zoning. I mean, we need some control over how things are built. But traditionally, that's been at the county level. That means the county, the people who actually live in that area, vote for the representatives who decide on zoning issues. But increasingly, the California government, both the governor and the legislature, have been taking control away from the local people and centralizing it in the state government in California. Zoning is an example with the builders' remedies. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they allow essentially developers to put in high rises right next to single family homes. Now, we need more housing. It's fine, but that's not what people bought their house for, right? We need people to have control over their own housing. It's the same thing with the school boards. When school boards started saying, look, these terrible policies, the pornography, that's forced into schools, hiding gender choices from children and basically indoctrinating children in you should choose your gender, try a different gender, that sort of thing, and hiding that from parents. That is being now, because local school boards objected, we are now seeing the governor and the legislature starting to force policies into the local schools, policies you have to accept this literature. Policies, you can't tell parents about the gender if their children want to make a gender choice, that sort of thing. So another thing I think is very important and why we need people to stand up and to run for the legislative seats that are open is to pull back on this centralization trend, to start returning power to the local communities and local school boards, so that local people can make local decisions over local issues that affect their lives.
That's actually my next question, is that California's education is tyrannical. It's insane. I would say it's like the same as Cultural Revolution back in Mao's age. You have to do this, you have to do that. And for the people who stood up, like Chino Hills School District, they get sued by our governor.
Yeah.
And who is the victim? So what's your plan once you get into office? What's your plan for saving our education, saving our kids, and saving the generation next?
So a couple of things need to be done. One thing is some of these bills are just bad bills. They need to be rolled back. obviously, the Democrats have a supermajority in the legislature now. Not all of them necessarily support these bills, but the ones who don't, are willing to vote for them. As I mentioned, I think before, in order to get
stay in power.
Stay in power, exactly. So first of all, we need a strong voice. We need strong voices in the legislature to roll back these bills. Another thing, I noticed that there are 3 initiatives that I haven't heard much about, but that hopefully will be on the ballot. One is to require schools to notify parents anytime their child starts questioning his or her gender, right? Now it can be hidden from the parents until it's already complete. What happens is many children go through and they're not affected, but those that are, they say, well, maybe I want to question my gender. They're encouraged in that. And then they start, maybe even dressing as the opposite gender. Parents are not told about this until suddenly they are told. And when they come in and say, what's going on? I don't know anything about this. I want to talk to my child. They're faced with a counselor or a teacher who tells them, well, your child has made this choice. If you don't accept it, they may commit suicide. Now, this is a very, very bad thing to tell a parent. I mean, and I don't think it's justified in the circumstances. We need professionals. We need help there. But, you can see this is a program. It's frustrating. So next thing, I will work for those initiatives. No hiding gender choices from parents. No, local school boards retain control over the kind of books that go into their libraries. So the pornographic books we're seeing don't have to be in the libraries. These are important issues. So those are the kind of things that I will work for when I'm elected.
That's good. It's great. Is there any other policy that you want to enforce other than the one that I just asked?
Yeah, I think we have a sort of in the name of environmentalism, many in our legislature and our governor have opposed things like the development of energy sources and developing new energy sources. I don't know if you're aware, but there are dams on the Klamath River in California on the border with Oregon that right now are being taken out. Those dams could have powered 88,000 homes. We don't need fewer dams. We need more dams. We don't need fewer reservoirs. We need more reservoirs. We don't need fewer desalinization plants. We need more. So one of the things I will work for is to open up. I mean, we need to protect the environment, but we have technology now that makes it safe. We can use natural gas. We can use these sources. And the bottom line is when energy is cheap, people prosper. It helps the poor. Not only can they buy food, but they don't have to devote so much time to earning money to pay for their heat and other energy. And they can go to school, they can start businesses, and there's more resources available to them. So lower cost energy is a key policy, and I will work for policies that remove the obstacles. We don't have to actually create anything. We just have to start removing the obstacles to doing these projects.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And is there any last message you want to tell your voter? And please tell us again, what is your name and which district you're running in, and then how they can help for your campaign.
Thank you. Yes, I think one message is this is an important election. It's important because so many people are fed up, not just with the school policies, but with crime and with cost of living, with inflation, with a lot of policies that have been put in place by our current government. And it's a time when, because of that anger and that upset with the policies, people are looking around, even solid Democrats. And there's a large segment of the population we call NPPs that are not committed either to Democrat or Republican. So there's a real opportunity for a strong conservative, a strong Christian message to succeed. And there are candidates running, not just me. You've interviewed some. There are other great candidates running for state offices and also for the House of Representatives. So I encourage you, everyone, in order for them to succeed, they need your help. They need not only resources like volunteers, like time, they need money. It's an expensive proposition to run for office. And these candidates are willing to stand up and to spread the message, to do this, to put in their time. So I urge you to get involved. Get involved as a volunteer, donate if you can, but now is the time to get involved. So I am Allan Marson, and I'm running for State Assembly District 23, which is in the south part of San Mateo and north part of Santa Clara counties, and I would appreciate your vote and support.
Do you have a website you can tell us and how they can contact you and donate to your campaign?
Yes, thanks so much. Yes, it's Allan K. Marson. That's ALLANK MARSON, all one word, .com. It's the email's ad23@allanmarson.com. The website is allankmarson.com.
Okay. All right. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Allan. Thank you for your time. And my name is Ethan.
And this is Felicia.
And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much.